Okay, good morning. Today is March 21st, 2026, and we are here for the village gathering. And I'm grateful for everyone here today. And we're going to be talking about something that has been a newer thing for me as well, that I'm diving deep into at this point, and I love it so much that I think it would be great to share it with more people who could get something out of it. It's called Internal Family Systems, and I'm going to start us off with an example. Actually, I'll start with a share. I grew up not really dealing with my emotions. I grew up being told my emotions are too much, and I learned to shove them aside, put them down, put them in a closet, not even share that I'm having them, and basically thinking that that part of me just wasn't supposed to be told to others. So it was a big part of me that was shut down for a really long time. And this was when I was really young. And I think medicine and training just reinforced that there's no time for it, for myself, my body, my emotions. And we just keep chugging along. So that's been my default for, I'd say, 35 plus years. And only in the past few years that I've started to really recognize that that's not really a healthy way to deal with my body and my emotions and myself. And that is where my journey is. And I'm sharing that with you so that everyone in the space can hopefully learn a few tricks and tips from me and share with me what you know so we can all see and move and progress and find our own way forward. So thank you for being here on this journey with me. And this story is directly from Dr. Schwartz's book on internal family systems. And he's the founder and he still practices and still teaches and still does therapy. So if you were to imagine being in charge of caring for a little child who's got big emotions all day and you just keep trying to shut them down, or you shut him down or the child down, you tell him to be quiet, you send him away when he has those big emotions, and you criticize him when he's got these emotions. And you also don't want to be around other people who could see these emotions because it's embarrassing for you to have a kid with such big emotions be around. But the more you shut this child away, the louder they get. Not because they're trying to make your life harder, it's because they don't feel heard and they just want to be heard. And honestly, that's often exactly what we do with our own emotions. So, what if this child was your anger or your fear? And all you do is shove it aside, put it deep, put it in the closet. Who here has watched Inside Out? I've watched it a few times and I've actually now made my kid watch it because it's a beautiful depiction of what we've probably done in our lives, which is those big, big emotions and feelings. We just shove them in the closet and ignore them. Or sometimes what I loved in Inside Out was this picture of one of the big emotions taking over and shoving all the other emotions into the closet and taking over headquarters and making Riley, who's the main kid in this, behave the way that big emotion wants her to in that situation. And when we try to shut these emotions down, it just, they're going to get louder in whatever way they can. Whether it is in the beginning, you can't hear them, but they're just going to keep creeping up more often, or your reactions get a lot bigger for a lot smaller things, or they come out of the blue when you're not even triggered. And that is often why we tend to react instead of respond in so many situations, and why we're doing the work and the whole reason I started this. So let's spend a little bit of time today not really trying to get rid of these emotions or these parts that have these emotions inside us, but just spending this time to be curious. Because a lot of times when we're afraid of these big emotions, that we can't deal with them, we can't deal with these parts, we're setting them up to feel unheard. We're setting them up to start becoming louder. And sometimes they even manifest as illnesses or migraines or headaches or depression or other things because you didn't listen when there were small things and now you haven't listened yet. So they're just going to get bigger and bigger. Honestly, autoimmune disorders too can be worse because of this, and flares. So when we can just take a look at them, turn towards them for a bit, all we're doing today is getting curious. And if we could get curious, we might be able to stay in that field of curiosity and stay away from that fear. Because when curiosity is on the plate, the part of the brain that brings in fear is offline because they cannot be out there together. And if we can stay in that curious field, hopefully we can make strides towards just getting to know some of these parts, to just saying hi so that they're not as scary the next time that you come across them. So here's an example. I actually don't want to say too much about internal family systems because it's better when you get to know your parts all on your own before I talk about it. So I might be talking about it more at the end of today and explaining what you might have already come up with, but I don't want to, what's the term? I don't want to influence our work today to getting to know your parts. All I'm going to say is usually how we deal with our parts, whether we shut them down, put them aside, are afraid of them, put them in a closet, criticize them, that is how we'll end up talking and dealing with others around us who may have those matching parts. So, for example, if you are really on about being productive, being the person who has a really good moral ethic at work and is a hard worker, and you meet someone or you're managing someone at work who might not be at that par and might be, more loose with how they work and their schedule's not that strict and they take some breaks and go off and do things or take a mental health day or other things and you're like, oh, I would never take time off. There's this moral that I have to do this. So when you see that part of someone else doing this and you have parts in you that are like, oh, that an inner critic part that's telling you, oh, that's definitely not okay, then you end up being that leader, that manager that is going to be the kind of leader that is not going to tolerate that. And that would put the fear of losing their job on the other person. So it really, and these are actually examples of people, of stories that I've heard. Someone on here actually shared about their managers. This comes up often where their part is showing up and is taking over situations wherever they are. Same with a parent. My example and what I shared already, that when I felt shunned down, it was because people around me, they weren't okay with my feelings. So they had parts that were showing up. And I can bring it in a step further. When I hadn't done my parts work, when I hadn't been doing all this work on myself, I would react when my kid was loud because I was never allowed to be loud. And that was a big punishment thing. So it felt unsafe in myself. So when my kid was at the airport going, oh, look, airplane, and like really loud and everyone can hear him, that itself, like it's not a bad thing. He's not yelling and having a tantrum, but that itself was triggering to me because that meant to me, oh, that's not okay. We can't be that loud. Shh. And this kid is just having fun and enjoying an experience. And, my son's hearing me say, shh, and don't be so loud. And that just changes the dynamic of how we show up everywhere because of these parts. So that's why it's important to organize parts. And the special part about them is what we do today can help with first helping us have a degree of separation with these big emotions, these big feelings, these big parts, which already can feel a little bit safer in ourselves because we're just looking at them. And the role today is to look at them as us just being an impartial observer. We're not in them, we're not being them, we're not becoming them, we're just watching them. So that degree of separation is already helpful. And again, as I said, we're going to stay curious. And when we're curious, then we don't have to worry about the fear coming in. And then one of the reasons this is so powerful is because when we get to know them, we can ask them this very powerful question: what is your unmet need? What do you need in this moment? Or what have you needed from me? And when you ask that question, that is a powerful question we ask our kids. That's our powerful question that we're supposed to ask our kids. That's what I teach with parent coaching, where when they have a behavior that isn't optimal, we try to figure out their unmet need their underlying unmet need. And that is exactly what we can start doing with our own parts that come up. And that can be so powerful to help them quiet down because they've just been yelling and screaming in the background and we haven't heard them. But if we listen to that unmet need, then they will quiet down. When we lock them away, though, they just get louder. So, what if today, instead of shoving them in the closet, we brought them out and got to know them a little bit? And that's the work we're going to do. There's this whole section that I had written out about all the different parts and what they mean and what they do. And I'm feeling like I'm going to hold off on that today because I would rather you show me and learn on your own what these parts are doing. And then I will restart the discussion and share what I do know about these parts and what this book tells me about these parts. This book that you can't see. There you go. This book that tells me about these parts. So let's just get started. If you have a paper and pen, that would be great. If you want to type on your computer, if you just want to spend a little time thinking about it in your head, especially if you've got littles that you're also worrying about. This title of the book is Internal Family Systems. And this is by Dr. Richard Schwartz. I'll put it in the chat in a second. I just want to orient you towards getting something to write type with. Our plan of today is I'm going to give you a question, give you 2 to 3 minutes to answer that question, prompt you with another question. We have about 4 or 5 such questions, and then we pause the recording and discuss. That way we have the time to have really gotten to know our parts before we break out and start talking about them so that we're not influenced by what others might say and also not influenced by what I might say. So I'm purposely keeping it to myself, but generally the way internal family systems works is we recognize that we have all these little parts that come up when we have certain experiences in our lives. We've all had some kind of experiences that are conflicting in our lives. We all have that growing up. These are experiences, these are situations that help us grow. And yet, each time we go through a situation, we have a part that gets formed, whether it is when we got hurt, whether it is a part that wants to keep us safe or keep us protected or manages us or gets us through medical school or gets us through work or college or tests. So we have all these parts that come up with our different experiences to get us through. And what we're going to do is recognize that these parts exist, recognize that we're not just these parts, we're some of them. And in fact, we can be there as a separate from these parts and help them. And the biggest lesson that I've learned that really helps shape the direction I go with my parent programs as well is this idea that if we could work with our own parts and talk to them and treat them the way they had been hoped to be treated when they first were created, like when we were kids. So it's almost saying it again, if we would just parent our parts the way they needed to be parented, then that will help us show up as better parents too in this moment, because that same relationship is exactly the relationship we want with our kids too. Okay, let's just start going. And I'm going to ask you guys to think of a moment. We've done this part before. Think of a moment where maybe in the past week where you felt a little triggered, not completely overwhelmed, not traumatic. We're not going into that uncomfortable right now. We're just checking in with a small time that you might have been triggered this past week. And take a moment to just put yourself in that situation and think of the possibility of a part showing up. A part that was scared, a part that was frustrated or angry, maybe overwhelmed or sad. Pick one because you might have had several parts show up. So think of one that you want to just get to know a little bit better today. And I'll just give you a minute to figure that out. And then as you have this part in your mind, I'm going to ask you to just give it a quick name. It doesn't have to be fancy. It's the right name for you. It has to be very quick, silly thing that you come up with. It can just be the emotion of that part. It doesn't even have to be a fancy name, the angry part, the anxious part, and go ahead and write that down or put it down wherever you want to. And now it's time to get curious. So here is your 2 minutes. I'm going to set a timer to keep myself in check too. Let's get curious of what does it look like? How old is it? Actually, is it even human? Is it a creature? Could it be you at a different age? Could it be someone else around you who was there when you were growing up? A parent? What's it wearing? Whose voice does it have? When you name this part, it can be an emotion or it can be just something else, you can call it the teacher, the protector, the manager, the supervisor, the army guy, whatever it looks like for you, whatever name you want to give it. And if it's just an emotion that's the biggest part of it, then yeah, you can name it as an emotion. Maybe the name won't come to you to start describing it, and that's fine too. So here's your 2 minutes to get to know this part and stay in the curiosity. You're not becoming this part. Okay, so that's been the 2 minutes. How's everyone doing? All right, so next question. What is this part trying to do or say? And I want to be mindful of this. What is this part trying to do? I don't want you to go into the weeds of, say you have an inner critic part and it goes into, well, it's saying, I suck and I'm not good enough. And that's not the direction we're taking it to. We're trying to figure out underneath that level, what is it trying to do? Why is it saying all this? What's the point of it? Like what is underlying that self-critic? Like what is the main reason it's headed that way or saying those things or doing those things? So this is a deeper one. So take a few minutes for this. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. Once again, not what is it saying that is, trying to do its underlying job, but what is its main job? It's a hard one to be clear about. So if you're going into the weeds where it's trying to berate you or it's trying to tell you, well, I'm doing this because I need to keep you, but why is it doing that? Maybe that's a better question. Why is it saying those things? Why is it doing what it's doing? And I think I gave it away by asking that next question, how is it protecting you? Because a lot of times these are protectors. Now, for the more experienced people, because I know there are a couple who've been in this work before, I'm going to add in the next question while the most of you can stay in that step 4 for now. But if someone is done with step 4, they can answer this next question. And you don't have to go to step 5. It's not required today if this is especially the first time you are going down this path. And for the recording, the portion that I put, step 5 is asking that question, when did this part first show up? When did it need to take this role that it has taken? And remember, we're not trying to figure this all out today perfectly. There is no pressure in this. This is just us getting to know a little part of ourselves a little better. And we stay in curiosity today. Now, the last question, this is where I'm going to give you a good 5 minutes. That question is, what does this part need right now? What does this part need from you? Okay, we have about 1 more minute. Wrap up any of those 5 questions. And for those people who are willing to go the extra, I'm going to add 1 more question for you. This is a optional. Often the reason this part is doing what it's doing is it's trying to protect a different part. So is there a different part underneath or behind? We have about 30 seconds left, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about parts and enlighten a little bit more about what this book talks about, what internal family systems is about. And it might help you jog your memory or maybe add a little bit more notes or maybe recognize, oh yeah, that makes sense as you look at your notes. So some of these parts inside us, they could be holding really old pain. These are sometimes called exiled parts. They're often younger versions of us, the ones who felt hurt, rejected, abandoned, not good enough. And because a lot of those feelings are so overwhelming, other parts might step in to protect that part. So you might have a part that's really, say, critical or controlling or always taking over or trying to get things right. And that's what we call a manager part. And its job is to basically run the show. Let me run the show so we never have to feel that pain again. I'm going to take over so we don't get hurt again. And then there are other parts that come in sometimes really fast when something gets triggered. They might shut things down or numb out completely or react quickly or run away. And those parts are called firefighters. They are like, this feels too much. We need to escape this now. And all of these parts, the exiled part, the manager part, the firefighter part, all of them, their main role is they're actually trying to help. Might not be working, but they're actually trying to help us. They don't work together with each other, and they're not always doing the thing that really lands up helping us. But their main role is that they came about to try to help. Often, the reason the way they're helping isn't working is because these parts were created when we were inexperienced, probably at a very young age, without the support, the parents that we could have used to help these parts at that time. So they've figured out whatever way they can in that young mind as an option to help and support. For example, if when I was growing up, I was excluded by some of the kids that I used to play with. So to make my body understand that, a part was created that basically said, oh, there must be something wrong with you. That's why they don't want to play with you. It's not a normal thing that you would say to a kid, but the kid is making that part come up and make sense of why I wasn't included. There must have been something wrong with me because I didn't have control over that. And this part created that control. And that's what it came up with. There must be something wrong with you. So that's where the system gets stuck because these protectors are, first of all, working really hard and overtime in a direction that's not really helpful. But they are trying to protect the hurt part. But what they're doing is they're taking over control. And in fact, sometimes they actually land up hurting the hurt part more. When I say there's something wrong with you, I am hurting my own other hurt part more. It wasn't the intention though. So what we're stuck in is this catch-22, this loop. The hurt part gets more and more hurt by its own protector part. And the protector part keeps continuing to try to protect by hurting the hurt part more. So we can get stuck in this loop and everyone's just really just trying to do their best. These parts are there to try and support and help you. This is what we're here to look at. This loop that we get stuck in, how to untangle it a little bit. And honestly, how to help the protector, that part, to just drop its shield. Because a lot of times it's just tired. It's been trying to protect for such a long time. It just wants to put it all down. And we, as the observer, can look and notice. And we can say, I see you. I see you've been doing such a hard job for us. I see you've been taking care of us for such a long time. I see you and thank you for all that you've done to get us to this stage. I see you and thank you for managing my courses, my classes, my certifications, for getting me to this amazing place that I am right now. And yes, you can put down your shield. Yes, you can put down your sword. Yes, you can rest. I got this now. Sometimes that is what these parts need. They need to rest. They need to be done with their load. But the protector is not going to be ready to let go till it knows that the part that it's protecting is safe. And that is the work we do, whether with a therapist or a coach or in journaling or in places like this. We are showing that us, what we call the self, the part that's separate from these parts, is there. We are an older, experienced version. We are doing the work. We are showing up for ourselves. And we are there to protect the hurt part, to help the hurt part through their hurt, to let go of some of those emotions that have been stuck for a long time. and show the protector that its work is done. And when we take that moment to let these parts go with relief, let down their burden, let down this loop that they've been stuck in, they can then show up even better for us. That manager can, instead of being the inner critic of, what are you doing? You can't rest right now. It can take over and say, okay, I got this. We've got these things to get done. Let's make a list. Let's do it. It can change how these parts, roles are going to be from now on. They could shift if we've done the work. And remember, today we're just starting, we're just dipping our toes in. And I just thought this was a powerful place to be today. So I'm grateful for you listening. And I'm going to open it up and let's pause the recording for all of us to make sense of what we've talked about. So, this is a quick example of my own situation where I didn't even recognize that I showed up in a different way, but my kid picked up on it. I was washing dishes. He was playing with some toy. It was close to bedtime. And I've got in my head the to-do list. Okay, I've got these dishes to do, and I still need to start the dishwasher, and then we need to get him up, and we need to get him to put away his toys, and then go up and brush, and then get him to bed. And oh, it's time right now. And if he doesn't go to bed right now, then he's going to be late, and he's not going to wake up, and he's going to be late for school, and the next day is going to mess it. All of that's going through my head, right? My brain is all over there. And I say to him, you got to go put your toy away because it's time to go up. And my tone is nowhere where it should be. And he doesn't listen. He's still playing. He's got, his mind's on his thing. He hasn't even acknowledged that I've spoken to him. I say it two more times. Now my tone is getting more serious. And as I speak with that more serious tone and get louder, he notices. And he turns to me and says, am I in trouble? Are you mad at me? And I, at that point, said, no, we just gotta go. We gotta go. And we did it, what we had to do. But when I took the time to reflect, if I go back to that moment at a future time and look and reflect back at what happened, which is what I did with my parent coach, I recognized that when I was getting louder and louder because he wasn't listening, a part came in for me. That same 7-year-old part that was excluded from friends and from playing with friends, that felt like I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't heard. That part had taken over. My 7-year-old part was running the show because my kid wasn't listening to me. And that kid not listening to me triggered my old part where I wasn't heard or listened. And it can show up in the smallest of moments, in the smallest of ways that we react or show up, not only as parents, but everywhere in our lives. When we do these little things, these little acts, they can add up. Sometimes they can be big blows, but they don't have to be because we are grown-ups. We are able to shield a little bit, but they show up in those smallest, tiniest of ways. And that tone can then become the internal tone that our kids listen to. That can be their inner voice. And that's why I feel like this work that I do with parents is so important, because if we know from our past, right, that a lot of times these young parts, the inner voice that they hear is our parents' voice. The inner voice that we hear is our parents' voice telling us, well, you should have done this, or you could have done this better. And if that's how we talk to our kids now, that is what they're going to internalize as their voice going up. Oh, it's okay. This feeling, it was such a small thing. Let's just move forward. Let's just be happy. And we want to make sure we show them, find their own way forward without taking our messages forward. The ones that we didn't deal with, the ones from our past, they don't need to be the ones that our kids hear from us. They can find their own way first by recognizing, oh, I'm having this feeling. And here's where I'm going to give you an example of my kid going through this. We've talked a little bit about how our brains can be a little bit inflexible. Are you having a flexible brain or an inflexible brain right now? And that's usually when my kid's dysregulated. So we said, okay, let's name this part that gets very inflexible or just, very rigid in the never ever zone. There's a lot of never ever going on in kindergarten right now. I'm never going to get my toy. I'm never going to be able to play. And in that space, we ask, okay, so who's this part coming up that's saying all this never ever? And we named it Brian because it's a little play on the word brain. This little tilted upside down Brian. And this Brian, we talked about what's going on with Brian. And he gave me this beautiful example just yesterday. You know what Brian does? Actually, you know what? His name is Mega Brian. You know what Mega Brian does? And this is coming from a kid who's washed inside out. So he says to me, Mega Brian hijacks my headquarters. He basically just shoves all the other feelings aside, puts them in the closet, locks the door, and comes over and takes over all of headquarters. And that's when, mommy, that's when I can't control what I'm doing and I'm hitting and doing other things. And here's his beautiful way of recognizing that that's not all of him, that's a part of him. And I'm grateful that he's on this journey and learning that now at 6 instead of learning it at 40, which is what I'm doing. And a lot of times that's what I want to show that, we do tend to go back to our old patterns because we've been doing this for so long. We do tend to ignore our parts again. We do tend to put them aside again. And the more we keep practicing, keep working on it, that's when we can go back, show up differently, not only for our parts, but show up differently in the world, in the spaces around us, show up differently as parents for our kids who can then show up differently and be the better future that we're all looking for in our lives. A future where we can lead with love, compassion, with everyone being in their self, their calm, confident, courageous, curious, creative, compassionate self. And those leaders would be such better leaders than the leaders who lead with our parts, with our fearful parts, with our angry parts, with our shields up. Wouldn't that be such an amazing world to live in? And that's why this is important work. And that's why I'm here doing this one day at a time with us, one family at a time with our own families. And hopefully we can shift the future. That's my soap opera, guys. So if anyone's interested, March is when I wanted to launch my group parenting programs, which is a place because we realize and recognize that community matters, right? Community makes such a difference where we can recognize, learn, grow from each other. And I'm hoping to do that with parents together.